If you've watched the channel over the last couple weeks, you may have seen a couple of videos that were jump-started by Ryan Gosling, and I use that word to describe the force with which he brought them into being. It started when I was walking down the street, and he just comes running up to me, screaming my head off, yelling in my face at the top of his lungs about how he's such a huge fan. He watches all my videos from start to finish without ad block on, just to help me out, even at the cost of his own minor inconvenience. And how he hates to bother me, but he really has this favor he's got to ask. He's got this tournament series coming up in DPP UU, and he could really use some underrated sets to give him the edge. So I was like, sure, Ryan, I'm happy to help you out. You've done a lot for me with your movies. So, I made that video, the DPP UU underrated sets featuring Draco Meteor Jirachi and stuff like that. And then a few nights later, I'm sleeping peacefully. I'm having this beautiful dream about the nuclear destruction of Generation 5 OU, and I am rudely jolted from it by the semi-nuclear destruction of one of the walls in my apartment. And who's standing there in the hole where that wall used to be but Ryan Gosling? He didn't even use a bomb for it or anything. He just, has gained some sort of superpowers ever since Barbie. I think it was the musical number that pushed him over the top into the next stage of human evolution. Anyway, so I'm a little annoyed. Not just because, who's going to fix the wall, I'm not getting my security deposit back, all that stuff. And just because the dream was such a wonderful thing that I was ripped out of. But I have the feeling that he's going to ask for something else. And, what kind of relationship is that? Where, every time he shows up, he's just, there to ask for something. That's not healthy. That's... You can't put up with that kind of stuff. Even if he does have a newfound level of danger to him, but what, I'm just going to, roll over and give him whatever he wants just because he's, super powered now? No, come on. Anyway, so I'm a man of principle, so I'm like, look, Ryan, but I also, I got to be polite. So I'm like, look, Ryan, it's great to see you, but, couldn't it have been under slightly different circumstances? And he's like, Kev, listen, those DPP UU underrated sets, they really, really carried me in my series. So thanks a lot. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm glad he's at least, he has the courtesy to say thank you. Sometimes these Hollywood types, get a have a lot of ego to them, gets to their head, all that, attention and adulation 24/7. But at the same time, I also know he's about to ask for something. And of course he does. He's like, look, I need the next level. I need to understand fully, on a molecular level, why Hariyama is the best Pokemon in Advance OU. And I'm like, well, Ryan, look, I want to help you out, but, I feel like you're kind of asking a lot of me. And to his credit, he was like, of course, I totally understand. And then he offered to set me up with Ana de Armas. So, of course, I made that Hariyama video. Are you kidding me? So, this video about DPPUU comes in the wake of my having gone out with Ana de Armas. And it was, a lovely time. We went to this beautiful restaurant lit entirely by candlelight. I'd never experienced that before. And, we sat down. I asked her to, tell me about herself. And, time just flew by. I was fully absorbed. I don't even know how long we were there. It felt like forever. And I think we were the last people there. Everyone else cleared out. I think we might have even been there, past closing time. But the staff saw how well we were getting on, and they didn't want to bother us. It would have been a crime against romance. And, then, Anna, comes to her senses. She was also in this kind of trance, that kind of thing that happens when you're really connecting with someone. And she's like, oh, my God, I just realized, there's something I actually kind of want to ask you. And I was like, yeah? And she was like, yeah, and, she starts smiling, but not like the kind of like I'm having a good time smile, but the kind of smile that lets you know you're going into new territory, And I was like, all right, this is going to be good. And she was like, what I really want is for you to explain the lore. And I was like, the lore? Like of my life? And she's like, no. Before we go any further, this is very important to me. I need you to explain the lore of why DPPUU is the second greatest metagame of all time. And I was like, you do? And she was like, well, I think it's the greatest metagame of all time. But I respect that you prefer Ubers. And yeah, I think where it went from there. Yeah. So, DPPUU is indeed the second greatest metagame of all time. And if you have not seen my video on why DPP Ubers is the greatest metagame of all time, that is in the pinned comment. Also in the pinned comment is this video of mine that you might have seen if you've been watching for a while, this channel. Because a couple of years ago, I played in the DPP Premier League, and I chose to sign up for DPP UU, and then I made a video about my experiences, and it's almost 2 hours long. I wonder how long this one's going to be. And yeah, it's I'm sure I haven't watched it, but I'm sure it has me gushing over what a wonderful tier this is. And I'm also sure that in it, I said that I would make a video dedicated to DPP UU at some point, and, this is that point. So, this is also fun additional watching. So, yeah, why do I love DPP UU so much? Well, like DPP Ubers, then it is a tier that is both, I think, incredibly competitive and balanced, but also allows for a great deal of creativity, an incredible deal of creativity, in fact. Not just in, like the OU sense of creativity tends to be, you take your standard Pokemon and you tweak sets and you rearrange the way they're used and the way they're played. And, it's mostly variations on that kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love that, of course. But sometimes you want to use a wider selection of Pokemon without giving up the competitive nature of the metagame. And in fact, I think this gives, whereas OU tends to be more cutthroat, and and Ubers to an extent because of the high power level, once you get to the lower power levels of the lower tiers, then I'm not saying that there's not going to be strong centralizing strategies, but I think part of the competitive allure of UU is that, yes, you can stick to the standards and do fine, but the standards are not so brutally restrictive that you are severely punished for venturing outside them. In fact, you are immensely rewarded for it if you do it correctly. And it's a lot less stringent than an OU. However, this is not to say that you can just run unexpected stuff and succeed. You really need to have a good grasp on the metagame in order to pull it off. Like the standard teams, yes, standard teams do tend to be susceptible to certain pokes that aren't seen as much, but you can't just slap that on your team and just run through them effortlessly. So we've got a lot of replays to parse here. This one I threw on at the beginning. I don't know what it was for, but it was a great example. So Pinsir, in case you're wondering, is not a standard lead, but it's incredibly useful. I think SGym made a post about why Pinsir is so good, but the basic idea is that two of the most common leads are not Scyther. Well, Scyther as well, but I'm talking about the Pixies, Uxie and Mesprit. They're very similar. Mesprit's more offensive. Uxie's more popular because it's so bulky and and they both have incredible move pools and all that. But Pinsir not only scares them, much like Scyther does. Scyther is also a good lead because it scares the Pixies. And, Mismagius is a good lead for the same reason, and, Dark-type leads. But Pinsir is also good in getting up rocks while scaring the Pixies. Because generally, the pokes that scare the Pixies, Mismagius, Dark-types like Drapion, for example, then they do not get Stealth Rock. So Pinsir has the unique combination of getting rocks and scaring the Pixies. And that's great. And as you see in this replay, I believe, then it also has Rock Tomb to get the jump on Scyther. And I think its last move is Earthquake, so you're hitting Registeel. And yeah, it's a great Pokemon. It's really, you are not sacrificing, you are not worse off for running it. So, and this is just the kind of beautiful dynamic that is very present throughout the tier. So then there's, Drapion, great poke. Now, some people are pretty down on Drapion. It has some mixed opinions, but also any tier where Azumarill is viable, I mean, you got to give it its props. Yeah, Azumarill rules. Yeah, Venusaur. Venusaur is the king for sure. There are controversial aspects of DPP UU. Also, I should mention this before I forget. I do want to host a tournament featuring DPP UU soon. I definitely want to do the DPP Little Cup thing. I think I want to run that tournament just in one day, because it's such a fast, the fastest tournament of all time or something. But I also wanted to host DPP Uber's Invitational too, and then people were like, hey, what about DPP UU tournament? And I was like, oh, well, that could be cool. And then it's like, oh, well, what if you just did, old style Smogon Tour with DPP OU, UU, and Ubers? And I was like, you know what? That could be fun. or something else instead of OU. I don't know, OU but with Salamence or something. So, yeah, I definitely want to get more spotlight on these wonderful DPP tiers. So, oh yeah, there's an Aggron in this game. Did it get to head smash anything? I love when Aggron head... No, just Scyther dies to rocks. Yeah, Arcanine is great. Oh, you gotta love a tier where Arcanine is good. Yeah, so it's not just the selection of Pokemon being... I mean, the selection of Pokemon having variety to them is, of course, wonderful. But it's the varied selection of Pokemon that allows for such interesting dynamics in the tier. So the selection of Pokemon is not just, oh, I get to pick from a wider selection of Pokes, because if that's the only appeal, then the tier doesn't really have lasting appeal. That kind of shallow aesthetic sensibility will, wear off after a while. And instead, after a while, you're like, oh, I get to use Azumarill, I get to use Arcanine, da, da, da. But instead, after a while, the competitive allure is that you get to, as opposed to OU, which is a little more insular in the kind of roles that, first of all, that tend to be dominated, and they tend to be, interchangeable in more the same sense, whereas the UU pokes, the waters and the grasses and the fires, they all tend to fulfill very different roles. And so that means the competitive dynamics are always rife for some sort of exploration. And I think that's really beautiful. I love seeing it. So we just went through the replay again. So yeah, Venusaur is the king. So the controversial stuff, to get out of the way, the thing that I think should not be in the tier at all is Hail. Because Walrein really ruins the tier. Walrein is really stupid, and if it were up to me, it would be banned. And that's pretty much it. I mean, some players have some complaints about Venusaur, especially vis-a-vis Sleep Powder. Dugtrio is obnoxious. And some people are like, well, Clefable's really good in OU, so let's kick it out of UU, which I don't think is... Oh, if someone's wondering why Clefable and Dugtrio are UU when they are... Well, Dugtrio has been banned from OU, or Arena Trap, whatever. And Clefable is, of course, an OU staple now. The reason is that these changes happened after DPP was the current gen. When DPP ended, then Clefable and Dugtrio were like, oh, occasional, not necessarily gimmicks, but definitely not standards either. So they started seeing use way after DPP was no longer the current gen. And at that point, it's like, well, we can just tier them as per OU. There's no reason to ruin UU just for the people who still want to play it, just because of OU stuff. If it was a current gen, then yes, absolutely, they would have been gone. But yeah, so for anyone wondering, that's why. So, the only controversy that I think should not be in the tier is Hail with Walrein, just because it's such an automatic win button against so much. I think it's really, I mean, yes, there is counterplay. There's always counterplay. People like running Sunny Day Moltres in general just because it's a great set, but I just think it's unreasonable to have to prepare for, because it really forces you to go out of your way in a very specific manner that really inhibits you when dealing with the rest of the metagame. But, it's most players who play DPP UU will play it for the love of the game. Now, this is not to say that we should not get rid of it, in my opinion, just because... there will be players who are going to play to win, and so they are going to use Hail, and, you can't fault them for that, of course. But if you're just playing DPP UU for fun, then I don't really think you have much to worry about. And I will do my best to get Hail removed, because I think it's a no-brainer. It's incredibly stupid. Yeah, actually, you know what? This is actually a fun example of how the community used to be different, in that when DPP was the current gen, and people really didn't like Rain, still don't, in fact. I think Rain is kind of silly with Damp Rock. And a lot of players had this gentleman's agreement with in tournament settings even, that Rain was cheap and it shouldn't be in the tier, and so we won't use it. Or we won't use Damp Rock, rather, because that just pushes it way too far. So that's an example of how much the culture has changed. Now that kind of thing would never fly. But yeah, Rain is more manageable, because it's Rain, so it's always good. Not to say that it doesn't have a lot of stupid stuff, of course, but, Yeah, so this to me is the same level of controversy as Mew Pass and DPP Ubers. I think it's incredibly stupid and should be kicked out, but you're generally not going to run into it. And in the DPP UU tournament that I hold, which, whichever form that is, whether it's a pure UU tournament or part of, Ubers and whatever, then... Uh, Hail and maybe rain will not be allowed. I think, you gotta get rid of, come on, rain, really? Yeah, but I think hail for sure would not be. But the other stuff like Doug, Venusaur, no, it's fine. Venusaur is really good. Venusaur used to be a suspect. Actually, no, sorry, it was never a suspect, but a lot of people really wanted it to be one because it's been the king of UU, ever since forever. Or since forever, rather. Good lord. Yeah, Venusaur and Milotic are generally considered top 1 and 2. I don't know when Registeel became number 2, just because it's less forceful in what it does, whereas Venusaur and Milotic are, clearly the top 1 and 2. But, to me, anyway. But, I mean, Registeel is up there for sure. Registeel can be kind of a blob. I mean, it checks a lot, but it's very weak, which holds it back for me. But yeah, I mean, don't take these viability rankings as gospel or anything, because these kinds of things, I mean, even if, I think I probably agree with most of them anyway, but it's not really, for our purposes here, it's not really to let you know, okay, well, Uxie is definitely better than Mismagius or whatever, but it's more to just give you an overview of what kind of Pokemon you're going to be seeing in the tier. So Venusaur is great because it's got great typing, great bulk, but never, overwhelming. Speed, good, nothing too crazy. And it's got a lot of great sets. It can run standard, special, offensive, sleep, leaf storm, sludge bomb, synthesis. You start mixing in other moves in there, of course. You can run life orb, you can run black sludge, you can run whatever. You can run swords dance Venusaur. You can run scarf Venusaur. You can run bulky Venusaur. I think scarf Venusaur is really great. The lead metagame is its own thing. Sometimes you run scarf Venusaur with HP rock to get the jump on things like Moltres and Scyther leads. It's really cool. So yeah, I mean that kind of thing, it's awesome, right? Just that level of customization. You can really, because the top strategies in this tier again are not so restrictive. Yeah, Registeel, I mean it's it's a blob. The more interesting Registeel sets are the more offensive ones, because anyone can just go, oh well, I'm gonna run either Stealth Rock with T-Wave and Boom and Shadow Claw for Sub Rotom and Mismagius and or I'm going to run Curse, Rest Talk, which is fine, but, weak and stalled out, so you got to be careful with it. The more interesting Registeel sets are like like people are running attack-invested fast Registeel with things like Shuka Berry, Custat Berry, Aka Berry, so you turn the tables on Moltres. I think those are really cool. So, see, even like the bland defensive Pokemon can be really interesting to good effect as well. Milotic is standard defensive Milotic, calm, bold, whatever it is. It takes hits, it checks Moltres, whatever. But it's got a lot of interesting options even on those. Like, for example, Toxicroak is a really big threat in this tier. Huge threat. 2 rain and just in general because it so thoroughly devours a lot of water types. So sometimes Milotic will run, and I'm not making this up, Hidden Power Psychic. Yeah. Has Hidden Power Psychic ever been run in another tier before? I don't know. But yeah, HP Psychic, of course, also hits Venusaur super effectively. Not as hard as Ice Beam, of course. I mean, one of Venusaur's best qualities is switching into Milotic and not being afraid of Toxic. So you like Ice Beam to hit it, but you don't hit it too hard. That's a nice balance. And with HP Psychic, Venusaur comes in even easier. Although, I mean, it's still not easy, with rocks and, Life Orb sets, potentially. Not passively healing. But yeah, I mean, Toxicroak is a big deal. So sometimes Milo will run HP Psychic. And Milo will sometimes even run offensive sets. Like max special attack and speed, timid or modest, life orb or lefties, both are great. It can even run Scarf. Yeah, Scarf Milotic. Yeah, you can start playing this tier now. It's awesome. Uxie does a million things. It can run all sorts of Stealth Rock support stuff, which in and of itself could be its own video. Calm Mind sets are actually quite popular. Calm Mind Chesto, some people like so that it can pivot into Venusaur or have that one-time recovery. It doesn't have good recovery of its own, so you just take hits with it, and then you kind of want a second life, so you rest up. If you Calm Mind a bunch, then you can rest and heal off a Toxic, things like that. Or a Sub-Calm Mind is really good as well. Because Uxie is fast. People think of Uxie as this slow wall, but then they realize, oh, base 95 speed is actually very fast. You can Trick Scarf, you can just Rocks and Wall and Status and Knock Off and all sorts of cool stuff. Yeah, Clef is cool. I mean, Clef, does bulky wall stuff, of course, but it can also run, Calm Mind Life Orb, which is pretty good, with Modest even. And a lot of speed for Haze Milotic. That was really popular on this Team Smurf used to use. And but there's also this really cool set, which is Double Edge, Fire Blast, Grass Knot, Soft Boiled. Mixed Life Orb Clef, because with Magic Art, it of course doesn't take recoil from Life Orb. And yeah, so physical mixed Clefable. Again, this tier is awesome. Mismagius, it does a million things. Support Will-O-Wisp, Destiny Bond, lure in pursuing dark types for the benefit of a teammate like Alakazam or something. You know, it can sub, Nasty Plot, it can taunt, it can do a million things. It can Scarf, it's a great lead. It even has Power Gem for things like Scyther and Moltres. You know, Mismagius does it all. It's not just a spin blocker. Wonderful Pokemon, very fast, very threatening. Arcanine. Defensive Arcanine is so good that even with Stealth Rock up, it takes everything. You know, especially defensive Arc is just unkillable. You can run physically defensive, of course. It has Intimidate, so it takes those hits quite nicely. You know, Flare Blitz, Extreme Speed, Morning Sun, such a great tool set. It's a bulky wall that isn't weak because Flare Blitz is strong. It even has the extra speed of Extreme Speed to pick off weakened things, so you're not just relying on recovery. You know, in its last slot, you know, Toxic is great for Milotic and Rhyperior. I like Roar with Spikes. I think it's really good. I go over that in that video that I made. Yeah, we've got, by the way, if you want the visual aspect of this video to be more engaging, then do not worry because I have 4 more replays that we're going to look at after we give a quick run through of all the Pokemon in this tier. Yeah, so Arcanine defensive sets are great. Offensive sets, of course, also great. Like the Morning Glory Arcanine set, I think, is the Life Orb set, which has Morning Sun to offset its weaknesses. So, like to Life Orb recoil, Flare Blitz recoil, Stealth Rock. You know, you can run that kind of set with lefties. I know Smurf used to really like CB Arcanine because if you switch in on a Will-O-Wisp and activate Flash Fire, then your Flare Blitz is absolutely destroying everything. You know, mixed Arcanine with HP Grass for Rhyperior is really nice. Yeah. Arcanine is a great Pokemon. It can do pretty much everything. Fantastic. Donphan. You know, Donphan is Donphan, of course. You don't need to go into too much detail there, but it's a great poke. It does a lot of cool stuff. Doug is Doug. Life Orb or Band. You know, EO used to use, and I think I used this on a team in the DPP UU video, Specs Doug Trio. And it's incredibly niche, but some teams really hate Torterra and Leafeon, which are great Pokemon. And so Specs Doug Trio Sludge Bombs Leafeon because it's very weak to its special defense stat is very weak, and it HP Ices Torterra. Yeah, if that's not an example, if Specs Doug Trio isn't enough to convince you to try this tier, I don't know what is. Rotom, you know, Scarf, Life Orb, Lefties, Bulky, it can do nearly everything. Why does my computer need to store or to remove? Oh yeah, that's what I need to. Hang on. I don't want to mess up this video because there's not enough space on my thing because I was downloading a bunch of stuff recently. Alright, that should be good. Hopefully that doesn't mess it up. Oh, God. Alright. Rather than rattle on... I guess this means this video is going to be edited. But rather than rattle on for another 20 minutes or whatever and see that the video is not working, I'm just going to cut it off here, make sure that it is, and then start again and then put them together, which means I'm going to have to edit and render. Ugh, gross. So, back in 2 seconds. Anyway, where were we? Yeah, Rotom, Subcharge. Subcharge hasn't been used in a while, actually. That's a really old set. That was on like Jabba's Quillfish team that he used to replace Frostlass with like Kangaskhan and things like that. Primeape. Yeah, so Subcharge, that hasn't been used in a while, but like Subsplit, Life Orb, you know, Scarf, it's Rest Hawk, it's like sets that are used in OU, pretty much. Houndoom. Houndoom is the go-to pursuiter because it's fast. And it has a strong stab, crunch, and pursuit, of course. You can run Dark Pulse. I mean, it doesn't have to pursuit either. It's a great Nasty Plot poke. You know, Scarf Houndoom is pretty cool. Flash Fire and Early Bird are both great abilities. And, I mean, Scarf Houndoom with HP Rock. Again, HP Rock, great for Moltres. Moltres is a pain. You know, Nasty Plot with Pasho Berry is really nice to turn the tables on Milotic. I've seen Nasty Plot Power Herb with Solar Beam to really ruin Milotic, as well as Rhyperior. You know, even because at full health, especially defensive Rhyperior with Solid Rock can live like HP Grasses sometimes. So yeah, Houndoom is pretty straightforward. And I think most of these other Pokemon are pretty straightforward as well. So I'm just going to highlight some of the cooler stuff they do. But this is more just to give a glimpse at what selection you're dealing with. And I think the selection that you have is just so varied. I mean, Rhyperior is Rhyperior. Kabutops. Oh, Scarf Kabutops is really cool. Yeah, Scarf goes on everything in this tier, I swear. Scarf Kabutops is great. You know, offensive, defensive. I really like Superpower on it to get the edge on Clef and Rhyperior. Subroost Moltres is a pain. Scarf Moltres. Specs Moltres. Oh, Specs Moltres is nightmarish. Torterra is cool. Legacy Raider, this old UU player, he used to use Scarf, Stealth Rock, Torterra lead. Again, anything is possible in this tier, I swear. And specially defensive Torterra became the standard, of course. Rock Polish Torterra. Now, if you want to disrupt standard Venusaur, Milotic, Registeel stuff, with your requisite fire, whether it's Arcanine or Moltres or whatever, you run Rock Polish Torterra. That Earthquake shatters everything. A Wood Hammer destroys Milotic, and then you Stone Edge the Moltres, if they have one. And the Ghost, they can't hit like Mismagius. Yeah, Torterra is easily one of the scariest Pokemon, maybe the scariest Pokemon, to such, or definitely up there at least, to such standard structures. It's why these kinds of teams tend to like Weezing as well, because Weezing can handle it as well as be a good counter to Venusaur. That's Weezing's main thing. But yeah, they don't always run Weezing, even though Weezing is a great Pokemon in general. And Weezing's not, immovable for Torterra either. If you have good teammates, you switch into Houndoom on the Will-O-Wisp and you pursued it for a little bit of chip with Rocks Up, that kind of thing. Yeah, Mesprit, like Uxie, but more offensive. Cool. Sceptile, I think Spec Sceptile is really, I've been pushing for that set for a while. Forget the Life Orb recoil, just Specs Leaf Storm, destructive, especially with spikes. Blaziken, hey, of course I'm going to love a tier with Blaziken. It can do a lot of cool stuff. Alakazam, as I mentioned, Toxicroak. Toxicroak is really nasty because it can run Swords Dance and Nasty Plot. Not on the same set, of course, but either it can really mess you up either way, and it's got great priority no matter what it does. Coolfish is great because it spikes all over Milotic and really rips balanced teams up just by littering the field with hazards. Spikes are not as slappable in UU. You really, which is nice, of course. That none of the spikers are so dominant, like a Skarmory type of thing, where if you can use spikes to great effect, of course, but that's why Frostlass was too much, for example. It was too good at spiking all over everything. Whereas if you're going to spike with Quillfish or Omastar, then you don't do it as... You don't have such a splashable Pokemon that covers everything with it. Of course, Quillfish is very good as a defensive Pokemon as well. It checks a lot of things just well enough while getting spikes. Spiritomb, it's a spin blocker and a ghost pursuiter. Wonderful combination of things to have. And it can do all, its move pool is really great. I mean, it's got its faults, lack of, fighting immunity is really huge. But you can't switch it into neutral moves because its HP is not that high. But yeah, it's a great Pokemon. Scyther, of course, you love to see Scyther. And Swallow, another terrifying flying type. Azumarill, Hariyama is really good. Hariyama's been getting more of its due lately. It's been very slept on for a long time. Kangaskhan, how can you not love Kangaskhan being great? For Leafeon. Oh, I love Leafeon. Leafeon, offensive and defensive Leafeon are both amazing. They go really well with DD Gator, actually. The SD sets. But SD Leafeon tears things up. It's really fast. Once you get rid of Registeel, it's almost impossible to safely wall because +2 Double Edge slams even Weezing really hard. Yeah, Entei is like Arcanine, but without the healing, but it's a little stronger on the physical side. And on the special side, it runs these really stupid sets with Sub and Protect and Pressure, and either Calm Mind or Toxic. Both are infuriating to fight. You got to be careful of those. Ambipom, how can you not love a tier with Ambipom? It's Slowking right below it, without Regenerator. You got to love it. Ambi is really good because it's fast and has strong fake out, and the UU environment is perfect for offensive normal types. It's not like OU where there's Steels and Permanent Sand and T-Tar and super powered Ghost, and you don't want that. But Ambipom fits perfectly in UU. Great lead, great late game threat, wonderful. Slowking, Blastoise, Drapion, Primeape. Ursaring is really good. I'm glad it's this high. Weezing, of course, offensive and defensive. I'm a huge fan of Exeggutor. I really raved about it in that video I made. Yeah, then there's other stuff. Aggron, Ludicolo we don't like because rain, but Miltank, Regirock. This is actually, I think Skuntank should be higher. Skuntank's really good. Steelix 2 and Absol. I think these three. Actually, even Regirock, maybe, because it's a good Moltres check. I think these three should be a little higher. Actually, funnily enough, Regirock and Skuntank are NU staples. So is Slowking, actually. But yeah, these Pokemon should maybe be a little higher. Yeah, Absol in particular, really, really, it's the strongest pursuiter in the tier. It's almost T-Tar strength. And yeah, it's of course got a vicious Sucker Punch, SD. It's +2 Life Orb superpower, just knocks the stuffing out of things. So yeah, got a lot of good variety. We don't like Walrein, of course. These pokes, actually, no, Hitmonlee should be higher. Hitmonlee is an offensive rapid spinner that's resistant to Stealth Rock. You know, it's fast, it's got priority, got great coverage. Really cool Pokemon to see. So, yeah, then there's, yeah, Tauros is pretty good. I always like a tier with Tauros after Gen 1. Yeah, then Tangrowth I think is a little underrated. I mean, but all these options are good. Poliwrath is good. You know, Drifblim is really, really funny. Medicham should be a little higher, I think. Magmortar, awesome. Yeah, Regice could be a little higher, I think. All right, I'm going to take a bathroom break. And yes, this video is edited. I'm still leaving the bathroom break in. It's a matter of principle. And then we will watch some replays of this joyous tier in action. Hashtag hydration gang. Okay. Yeah, we're not gonna deep dive analyze these games. Just look at the cool stuff happening. I will definitely be on the lookout for more great DPP UU games to cover in depth, a la Pokemon's Greatest Battles. That's a series I gotta bring back. But yeah, so here we have a Scyther lead. Here we have an Omastar lead. Omastar lead generally tends to be, you know, Rock, Spike, Sash, that kind of thing. Oh, this is Scarf Ancient Power Omastar. Yeah, cool. So down goes the Scyther. Here comes Rhyperior, gets up a sub, checked by Donphan. EQ, I mean, it's checked by Donphan, but it still hits. Wow, that is strong. That's probably an attack invested, or maybe especially defensive Donphan. Probably attack invested with some speed. Given that it outsped Rhyperior. But maybe not, though. Anyway, here comes Houndoom, nasty plotting. Here comes Ambipom. And actually, low kick. Oh, that was a great move. Low kicks the rather than faking out, low kicking the Omastar so it can't switch in for free. Does Scarf Omastar doesn't even outspeed Ambipom. It's not fast enough, but it would live fake out into low kick, I think. So that was a good move to get the 2 low kicks there. So in comes Donphan, head smashing, looking for the ghost. And finding Blastoise instead. Spin. Venusaur. Oh, staying in on the... Yeah, Venusaur wars can be a little on the irritating side. That's why it's very important to build your team with them in mind. So here comes Houndoom into the knockoff. Great move by Pearl. There's the Pasho Berry. That would have turned the tables on Milotic. Or, well, Blastoise in this case, something fierce. And see, now look, it needs to go for the flinch or the crit, and it gets the flinch. And here comes Donphan getting returned on. Bear in mind, Nasty Plot Houndoom could still run Sucker Punch, but it's still not quite in range. There's Slowking too. Oh, look at Slowking running Trick. That's something it has over Milo. I mean, it also has the fighting resistance and Nasty Plot ability to really threaten defensive stuff over Milo. You know, you still got to watch out because it's got that dark weakness, of course. But look at that Trick. I mean, talk about taking advantage of your advantages. Yeah, so it gets the Black Sludge, but it has Scarf the Venusaur, which isn't bad. Again, Scarf Venusaur is good, but it doesn't mean it's going to beat it one-on-one with... the Stab Psychic to hit Venusaur on the switch harder. That's also a really big one. How was I overlooking that? So yeah, Ambi takes advantage of the Slowking's Black Sludge by faking it out. Extra chip, and here's Houndoom threatening with See, there's the Sucker. And now the Trick Scarf Venusaur will actually take advantage of the scarf it's been given by going to that. Back comes Venusaur, synthesizing it off. And staying on the T-Wave. Ooh, Para, that's rough. That's another one. Oh, I guess it would have lived, yeah. But now it can synthesis. Well, it can here. There's a crit U-turn. That's nasty. But Venusaur's not going to beat this one-on-one. But with the Para, yeah. I think Lily's just waiting to get that Rhyperior in for a sub with the Para going. But yeah, instead there's a lot of Sludge Bomb to be spammed with the Para. So here comes Rotom getting the sub up as Uxie is sacrificed. Scarf Venusaur, look at Scarf Venusaur putting in work. And drops to the Orb Shadow Ball. In comes Ambi, and that's the game. Great game by both players, great teams. Love to see them, that's why I picked this replay. Haste Up and Boof, these guys are really creative. There's a Claydol lead against a Moltres lead. What's this Claydol going to do? Oh, it's going to Scarf Rocks and get evaporated by Specs Overheat. Alright, is this going to be an offensive Milo? No, it's going to double switch into a Sceptile. And look at that, Specs Leaf Storm. Good lord. And the rocks are up now as well. Met with an own Sceptile. Very cool. Magmortar. Nice. Focus Blast. It survives just barely, but it's going to chase it out because it's got... Look at that. It chases it out because it's Scarf, and it Thunderbolts the Water Switch. Magmortar rules. What other water type can do that? Thunderbolting these. That's way better than HP Grassing it. So now Sceptile comes in again, sacrifice. Yeah, Scarf Magmortar, switching into Sceptile and Thunderbolting the switch in. Blaziken, 2 fire types here. Love to see it. Double to Sceptile on the Milo, fantastic. Also love to see it. Is this a Life Orb Sceptile? No, it's 2 Spec Sceptiles. So the first Spec Sceptile, which is into the second one, Giga Drain, which is generally not that good in DPP, but I can see it over Energy Ball because the other options kind of suck. So here comes Clef, here comes Sceptile, which has been with rocks knocked into Overgrow range. So this Overgrow Specs Leaf Storm is going to delete the Clef, and the Sceptile is sacked. Clef's going to come back in, of course. Blaziken switches into Clef. Look at that defensive utility. Clef is nowhere near as annoying in OU because it's not supported with permanent sand or hail. When it is, then it becomes insufferable. But when it's not, which is most of the time, then yeah. So here comes Blaziken spamming low kicks, doing a lot of damage actually. Looking for that roll or that crit on the Milo. Doesn't quite get it. Moltres sacked. Specs Overgrow, Leaf Storm, nothing switching into this at this point. Milo drops, Clef again. Sceptile gets one more shot with rocks. Azumarill sacked. There's the Calm Mind. Doesn't go for the Aqua Jet, so it's a faster Clef. And here comes Blaziken again. And whatever this Clef's coverage is, it's not enough to take out the Blaziken. But there's an Unrevealer for Boof after anyway. And then there's an Aggron last. Yeah. Cool. So... great game, both players. Loved seeing the teams. Got 2 more. We got Brufasa versus... I forget what the alt of this player is. So we're just going to call them... Cure and Persona. That's so funny. That's 2 of the greatest movies of all time. And in one alt name. Love to see it. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I'm choosing to believe it is. Look at Ambipom go. Ambipom faking out, returning, and... oh, I thought it was going to Pursuit or something. So then Torterra comes in on the U-turn rather than getting Ambipom's status. Maybe it's a Lum Ambi, maybe it's not. Here comes Swellow. Swellow is a terror. Guts Swellow, it's so fast. It's faster than Dugtrio even. Faster than Alakazam. Super strong with Guts, Facade, Brave Bird, and of course U-turn. So you got your Aggron and it gets Dugtrio'd. So shame about that. But now it comes Torterra. Oh, Leafeon. Well, one of my favorite things about Leafeon is that it is a grass type which helps check other Torterra. That's really important. Tangrowth does this as well, but Leafeon does it while also running a scary offensive set. Because a lot of offensive teams, it's not just those balanced Venusaur, Milotic, Registeel, Fire, Ghost, filler things that are destroyed by Torterra. Offensive teams, once it gets that Rock Polish on a locked Thunderbolt or Earthquake, then you're in a lot of trouble. And with Leafeon, you have this pretty much hard counter to it, because Leafeon's defense is so fantastic that it shrugs off Stone Edge. So, Rocks, Arcanine into Leaf Blade, not much. Here's Milo. We're going to see a Morning Sun. There we go. And here comes Quillfish to spike over the Milo. That's exactly what it does. With Aqua Jet, I said I love that Dugtrio can't pick it off safely, especially with that spike up. Here comes Torterra again. Especially defensive Torterra is a beast, and it takes absolutely nothing from that Psychic. It's going to synthesis that off. Rocks, Woodhammer, EQ, synthesis is the set. Although, of course, you can mix and match. You can put rocks on something else and run Roar or Stone Edge or Toxic or Protect or whatever you want if you like. Again, the variety is absolutely amazing. So, Miss Magus doubles in. Here comes... Uxie doubles in. Registeel, that's going to be irritating. If it's Curse, it can start... Curse Registeel with Dugtrio is threatening sometimes. But we're about to see, I believe, one of my favorites. And Roar Arcanine. Yeah, Roar Arcanine is really good for Sub, Entei, and Moltres. That's the biggest deal. But it also helps with things like annoying Curse Registeel. And, you know, with Spikes down, Milotic switching into it. It's like, no, you're not. Something else is getting dragged in. And you drag in the Venusaur, and then the Venusaur has to switch. And then you get more Roars, and it's just wonderful. So, unfortunate crit on the Quill. Now, Miss Mag comes in. Especially defensive Torterra eats an Ice Beam from... oh, that was a great double to avoid the Dugtrio pursuing the Ghost. The Missy. So, fantastic move here. Because look at Torterra with all these hazards up. Nothing's really switching into it. So, that was a great move by Brufasa. Ice Beam does not... does KO from that range, rather. Here comes Ambi with the free chip. I mean, forcing it out, that's good enough. Fake, Registeel, low kicked, not threatening it in return. And now it's just a matter of sacrificing to Swellow. Both Pokemon are impressive in this. You know, Arcanine taking that hit with Rocks Up, and then and Swellow doing that much while intimidated. Yeah, and doesn't go for the E-Speed, maybe to not let Milotic heal up. That was that was a good move. Don't let... actually, no, I don't know if it mattered. Maybe there was no E-Speed on that Arcanine. Which, you know, rare, but has been heard of. Now, force the Brave Bird as opposed to the Facade for the extra recoil. Yeah, guaranteed win. Great game. Love seeing it. All right, our final one. I think this was from the finals of the recent UU Premier League or some tournament. Anyway, Mesprit is Scarfed, U-turning out of that Scyther, which also U-turns out of Registeel, and in comes Dougie. Reggie, of course, lives it, gets up the rocks, down it goes, free U-turn for the Mesprit. Out of this Registeel, what's coming in? Moltres, uh-oh. There's Sunny Day. Alright, that's an interesting move. Registeel's going, alright, well, I need to, I hope it's not Specs, but Specs is rarer outside the lead slot by a lot. Specs is where the lead slot is mostly. And yeah, Life Orb, it can, but I think Special Defensive Reggie has a chance. Well, from full health it can. I don't know about 95, then you're starting to push it. But yeah, with the Sunny Day, then Registeel does, of course, get destroyed. But the rocks are up, and that was crucial. So decided, look, it's worth it to let Registeel take this hit to get these rocks up. And now Dugtrio pursues the Moltres with rocks up. That's a great move. Threatening the Stone Edge and chasing it out and chunking it like that. So now he's got to prevent that spin if he's got a Ghost, but... oh, no Ghost. Great team read by Michu there. And now here comes the Sleep to shut something down. Here's Venusaur doing Venusaur things. The Sludge Bombs. And Venusaur proves itself to be the J. Robert Oppenheimer of DPP UU. Here comes Moltres again. There's Kabutops. There's the Own Spin. And this being... oh, there's a burn. That's nasty. But this being Sunny Day Moltres means that it's not going to have HP Grass. It's going to have Solar Beam, so it can't threaten on this turn. There go the rocks permanently. Down it goes. Here comes Scyther again for another U-turn. Or Aerial Ace, feasibly, but no, U-turn. Moltres does not have Flame Body in this generation, for those wondering. Dugtrio comes in, gets the Stone Edge off, doesn't pursuit on the Donphan switch. That was a big turn. That was a big one. And now here comes Calm Mind Uxie. If Azumarill's coming into it, it's looking good for Male. And even Water... oh, and the second one crits. It's going to be a tight one, but Venusaur is still really good in here. I mean, you got to watch out for the Mesprit because it's still at full health. But even Mesprit isn't going to KO from full with Leaf Storm from Psychic. From full with Psychic, so you just got to... and he doesn't even have to stay in. He can just sack to this. He can Sucker Punch even. And... yeah, I guess it's pretty much... now the move is pretty much crit Scyther to win. Oh, well, with Sleep Powder, then it's even tougher. Yeah, guaranteed turn to sleep there on the Sludge Bomb. Here comes Scyther. U-turn out. Free Leaf Storm. Going for the Sleep Powder again. Kind of risky, but maybe it's not. No, okay, it is Leaf Storm. All right. And now the sacrifice to Scyther to just get the Aerial Ace on it. And now finish it off with Venusaur Sludge Bomb so as to not risk an inaccurate miss. Cool. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and learning about DPP UU, and I hope you were inspired to play it. If you're looking for a place to play it, just go into the Ruins of Alph room, the UU room, or maybe the UU Discord even. I'm sure you could find it on the Smogon forums, and just ask people to play. And yeah, or you can come into the Discord in my server and ask people to play. I'm sure some of them would be thrilled about that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it from me. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. And yeah, I will see you in the next one.